Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Giddy up, giddy up.
Woohoo! Howdy, howdy.
Howdy. I'm going to take us back in time a little bit because I've been wanting to talk about this and I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
And possibly my favorite episode I've listened to of ours in 5 years. Like, my favorite episode was Dr. Jones. The most recent one he did about where he dug deep to find his inner cranky, which was not at all cranky, which was precious. Anybody else I would have been like, you're full of it. Quit faking and just, but with Dr. Jones, I'm like, oh, he really is just so positive and so sweet. Like, okay. But I made him dig deep and I wanted to know his worsts. And I still would have liked a little bit more meat on the assistant one. I feel like he kind of glossed over that a little bit, but
Well, maybe next time.
Well, several of these. Actually, I was going to start this by saying, normally I love sitting next to you, but not today. I want him, not you. I got a lot of questions for him. That would have been one of them. I need more details on this assistant one. But the two questions that I had that I'm hoping we can talk about, you're just going to have to do.
I'll do my best.
But they are in your wheelhouse. I'm sure you will have some great tips. But two things that came out of that episode. So first of all, if you haven't listened to that episode, honestly, he is so precious. And I thought there were so many good things to learn from that episode. But two questions I had, rather than me hitting both, can I just hit one and talk about it and then I'll hit the other?
Yeah, let's do that.
So he talked about the patient that he talked about that I thought was like, not that I ever want him or anybody to go through anything like that, but in my mind I was like, oh, good Lord, this sweet, positive, gentle soul, and patients still hate him. We're all susceptible to these patients. And I just figured, honestly, I thought older Caucasian gentleman with lots of experience, he probably doesn't get these crankies like we do. Yeah. People probably don't mess with him. Well, this one messed with him. So it was kind of refreshing that anybody can be targeted, right?
You're like, I am not alone. That's good.
Yes. Not that I want him targeted or anybody, but it can happen to you too. So that was kind of, refreshing to find that it's, he still has to deal with stuff. And almost like, okay, if I'm still practicing, in the next 20 years, I'm still going to be dealing with these crazies. And whether I like to or not, at least it's good to have that. The expectation is, because I would have expected older gentleman, Caucasian dude in this small town, everybody loves you and you're not going to deal with crankies. And so the fact that he was. But my question was, he talked about how she carried on at the prep appointment and was really upset, and how he had to be like, you need to calm down, or how he grabbed her face, grabbed her shoulders or whatever, and was like, you need to, this is all in your head. And how do you come back from that was my question. So what I mean by that is, how did you wrap up that appointment without her going, this man yelled at me and told me this was in my head, and I am, you have, I feel like most of us people would be like, you're not relatable, you're cocky, you don't believe me, it was painful to me, how dare you say it wasn't, you're full of yourself, you're a terrible I could see us all being assaulted with that, either verbally or online, for sure. Somebody would leave a review like that, or a board complaint, whatever. And so I guess in my mind, how did you get her out the door? And then when it was time for her to come back, how did you guys prep for that? Because I can only imagine the vibe in the office is like, damn it, her bridge is here, her crown. Who's gonna tell her that? So to make the call and have her come in, and then he's got to see her. Was he like, hey, associate, you go deal with that? Yeah. How did he muster up the courage, and what was it? Did he just act nonchalant like that had never happened, and here we are, it's a whole other appointment? Did he walk in and say, hey, you doing better? Do you acknowledge it? Do you not acknowledge it? Who do Do you send in the same team member? Do you send in a different team member? Like, how are we navigating that? How did he get that crown seated is my question.
Mm-hmm.
So just all of those things, I try to put myself into that office going, how the hell did you get her out the door? How the hell did you get her in the door to get the crown seated and back out the door? There must have been a lot of strategic planning in all of that. And I kind of wanted, if he was here, I'd want to know, like, how did they
do that? Yeah.
We don't have him. So for you, kind of going, what would you advise him or advise us? You know, because normally something like that had happened to me, I'd be calling you going, oh my God, what do I do here? So can you kind of walk us through?
Yeah, for sure. And this happens a lot. I can't tell you how many times I'll get a call or a text from a client that's in a panicky moment of, what do I do with this patient, this problem patient? And first and foremost, I think you assume planning and projecting and all of that. I don't know that that's everybody's default. I think there's plenty of providers and teams out there that are just like, ugh, let's bury our heads and not think about that again. And we can't do that. We do have to navigate the situation with some sort of openness and willingness to talk about it. So on this particular case, what I would have told my dad and his team is, hey, we need to talk about it before everybody leaves for the day. So we need to talk about it when it's fresh, because one thing that changes when we move away from the situation is it clouds what actually happened, for better or for worse. It clouds it. Distance either makes the situation worse. So when we go home and then we explain it to spouse or kids or, you know, whoever else, we're talking to our buddy about it, we can sometimes, if we have a flair for the dramatic, then we can add to it, not lying about the situation. We're just going to make it more fun than more fun of a story than it actually was. And our brain starts to block that in as memory. And then it can also do the opposite. We can walk away going, oh, she must have just had a really hard day and it'll be okay. She's not going to do that again. And we can justify it as we walk away from it. So it's really important to address it same day is what I would always recommend, and just say, hey, do a quick huddle at the end of the day that goes, okay, let's talk about Miss Jones and what happened with her. You know, so-and-so, you were in the room with me. What is your perception? What amplified her? What made her worse? What did I say or do that could have prevented that before she exploded or before I kind of lost my patience with her? How was she, ladies at the front, how was she when she left? What did she say? What did she do? So we need real-time reactions. Then, after we have real-time reactions, I would definitely recommend somebody kind of making an email of that. We discussed patient A today. This is the collective summary. She did this, she said this, we did this, we said this, just so it's on record. So we're not going to get confused. We're not going to over-amplify this or under-amplify this. Then we can come back at a different time and make a plan for what do we do with Miss Jones or patient A. And so this one is challenging because she was in the middle of, that was her prep date. So she has to come back for a seat. So to me, the options are limited. If we've just finished, she needed a couple fillings and we finished, we've got lots more options because she's not in the middle of care. We were able to at least, fix the teeth that needed to be fixed. This one's challenging because she walked out with a temp. So in that particular case, this is where having alternate doctors on the team is helpful, because Dr. Jones, my dad, does not have an alternate doctor on the team. It's him. So he has to deal with her. But if there was an alternate doctor, even though that alternate doctor didn't prep the crowns, it would have been very helpful for him to be able to punt this patient to somebody else to seat the crowns.
So then that would be my one question there is, should you? Are you hiding from the patient because you yelled at them and they might still be mad at you? And so is it looking like I'm fearful of you and I'm hiding from you and that's why I punted? Were you looking forward to seeing me next time so you could either apologize to me or you could yell at me again or whatever? Like how do you figure out who should see the patient next time?
Yeah.
Like you said, he didn't have a choice, but if you do have a choice, should you use that get out of jail card, or should you hang on to it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
To me, that depends on the rendering provider, the doctor that did the initial. If they feel anxious, angry, still frustrated with the patient, then I would say we don't do our best dentistry in those modes. And to me, if it's somebody that's just like, water under the bridge, it's fine. She just had a rough day. And they can walk in with the same energy that they would have for other patients, that I'm like, okay, you get a chance at this. But if there's any, like, I'm going to be nervous, I'm going to be jittery, I'm not going to be myself, we don't function best clinically in that mode. So in that particular case, I would just make the executive decision to punt it to somebody else.
And then maybe if the patient does say something like, oh, where's Dr. Jones today? Oh, he's with another patient. Did you need to see him? Do you want him to swing by?
Yeah, exactly. Because then the patient still has the opportunity to at least talk to the other doctor, the original rendering provider. I mean, it could easily be scheduled if she left and didn't have her seat appointment scheduled and the docs work different days. It could be that we just preemptively, when the crown comes in, we preemptively call her and put her on a day where the other doctor works. We're like, oh, yeah, no, Dr. Jones isn't here today. This is his off day. He's off on Fridays. So, or whatever the case may be. I think it's easy to potentially work around that. If there's a pre-scheduled day that the doctor was going to be off for personal reasons, like put her on that day. That way it doesn't look like we did this intentionally for her to not be able to see the doctor. So that's option one if you have another doctor. Option two, unfortunately, if it's in the middle of something like a crown and a seat like we were in this particular situation, then we need to book that patient at a time when our doctor is at his or her best. Which are like, we put crowns at 8 a.m. I understand that. But if Dr. Jones is most peppy, happy, able to handle stressors at 8 a.m., which is why we have our crown preps there, then Miss Jones needs to go in that spot, because we need our doctor functioning at his or her very, very best. And even if that means we break template to be able to do that, then I think it's worth it. So we strategically put that patient where the doctor is going to be able to best handle. And then we do need to assess what team members need to be in the room to buffer. So and I don't know this with my dad's example, but if Dr. Jones was in the room with an assistant that's kind of mousy and nervous and calm and would never like jump in and try to like help take control of a situation, that doesn't need to be the person in the room. We need to have our person that has the ability either to woo that patient into happiness. In our last week's episode, we talked about sanguine personalities that are just naturally likable. Maybe we put our sanguine assistant in there who can kind of butter the lady up and get her ready. But also so that our sanguine assistant is the one chatting throughout the appointment. That Dr. Jones needs to kind of, hey, you stay a little bit quieter this time, because we don't want any potential friction between the patient and the doctor to come up. So to me, the second option is we can't change out doctors, but we can change out team members that might be in there as a support staff.
And we do that all the time, where I'm like, okay, this parent will do better with sanguine in there, so I need you. Well, I was supposed to be on hygiene for, I know you are, but y'all need to at this time watch this. You need to make sure you're available to jump over here, and so you cover that. And I know that's not normally what you do, but for this interaction, or if it's a patient that I know is more of the choleric-y type and is a little bit more grim, and I know sanguine's going to come in and irritate them with all their pep and cheer, and they're already irritated the crown fell off and they had to take another day off work to put the crown back on, and now sanguine's coming in and parents like, then a lot of times I'll send my choleric hygienist in there. Well, the hygienist is not the one who's used to seating crowns, but that's okay for this interaction, because if the parent's going to be snippy, my choleric's going to be able to shut that down and buffer for me.
Yes. Yeah, and we don't think about this probably as often as we should. I think it's super helpful to know or to be able to pinpoint our patients' or parents' personality types, and then to adjust staffing-wise accordingly.
If you can.
Yeah. If you've got the luxury of that many team members or being able to spot the patient or parent personality, Absolutely. Let's accommodate that. It just makes our lives easier. It makes patient satisfaction better or parent satisfaction better. So we don't think about it enough. I was just doing a phone training with a team on Friday, and we talked a lot about patient personalities. I had been able to pre-screen hours and hours of their phone call before this team training. And I can pick up on patient personalities like within 2 seconds over the phone. Like second sentence in, and I'm like, that's a cleric, because of just key things that I've learned to look for. And so as I talked about it with this team, we then played calls after we talked through patient personality and our own personalities. And I would have them guess the patient personality. After we listened to a phone call, I would just pause and be like, what personality? And 95% of the time, dead on. They could pick them. We've got the skills. If we can pick a phone call, a patient's personality over the phone, then it's 10 times easier in person. If we've met this person, we should know their personality for the most part. But we don't spend enough time doing that. So I think that's a key takeaway on this. If we know angry patient really likes soft, buttery, like sweet comments and all that, we got to stick our sanguine in there. If she wants to get in, get out because she's nervous Nelly and she wants to be in and out within 10 minutes, then we got to put our most efficient person in there so we can move that appointment along very quickly.
So I think the question I have for you here, or what I can imagine the response to that will be like, well, I only have 3 people on my team, or who has the time and energy for that? What's the big deal? I've never really done that. We're just fine. I think about a colleague of mine, and he is the epitome of it's all fine. It's all fine, because he's such a laid back guy. And honestly, I start going, are things usually fine for him?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that never would have worked out that way for me, but it worked out that way for you. So is it a me issue? Like, was I over dramatizing this and I was flipping over backwards for no reason? And so, it goes back to our personalities as well. Me being the melancholy going, okay, I've got to have a plan A and this is what's going to happen. But if that doesn't happen, then plan B is this. But then what if mom and dad are both there? Then I need to think about this. And he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what are you doing? You have no preparation whatsoever. And he's like, why would I prep for that when I don't know who's going to come and I don't know, maybe they're going to be in a fine mood or maybe this, like, I'm just not going to worry about it until they come in. And to me, I find that stressful. So does it boil down to the doctor's personality issue, or does it really impact patient care is my question to you? Because he would argue, it'll be fine. It's always fine.
And I would agree with him 90% of the time. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fine without all of this accommodation. But what we always plan for is the 10%. Because the 10% is the stuff that can blow up in our face. And so, can we potentially spot that 10% that's super like, oh, this is not a good parent, or this is not a good situation? Maybe. But maybe we just make good habits of planning for potential worst case scenarios or personalities that might kind of rub against each other. If we're always in the habit of doing that, then we're planning for 100% of success in our patient experiences. But I agree with him. We could probably sit back and do nothing, and 90% of the time we're just fine. But how bad is that 10% that we could have potentially avoided?
So my question then is, but is that 10% worth it to stress ourselves out over? How bad could the 10% be? And do you think that the 10% could be somebody leaving a bad review? Okay, well, 9 are going to leave good reviews, so it's not that big a deal to worry about this. Or is it more of, well, that 1 could be the one that's the board complaint, and now it's costing me thousands of dollars to go through. So to avoid the one odd, I can just see him going, you're a nut, you do it to yourself. And I don't think he's wrong a lot of the times. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, but you're not an owner yet. You will be. And then I'm curious to see how you're going to change this whole, it'll be fine. Is it because you've not had to deal with the 10%? And I would say, in my mind, it's more than 10%. I want to say it's 20.
Probably.
And so to me, like, ultimately, you are not responsible for problem solving that 20%. So to you, it may as well be 100% because it was fine as far as your contribution to the solution. And some of us are more risk takers. Maybe to him, he's like, a board complaint every year is not that big a deal. It's what I kind of bank on and it'll be fine. But to me, I'm like, I feel like I'm ready to hang up my drill if I were to get a board complaint. Like, that is a big deal to me. So I think it's this kind of, I guess that's where I go and say what you just said. I would argue and say, okay, he's right if we have those discussions and arguments, like it boils back down to our personalities. However, where I do say, but it does affect the patient experience.
Yeah.
And all of us should be striving for 100% patient satisfaction. And so in his mind, if he's like, well, that's never going to happen, that's just unrealistic. You're going to expect 20% of patients not to be happy. And if you're okay with that, but to me, I'm like, but then that's like chasing your own tail in a lot of ways, because that 20% can have a big impact on, imagine 20% of your recare doesn't come back, 20% of your operative doesn't come back. You're spending that much more on marketing to make up for this 20%, 10%, 5%, whatever it is. You're chasing your own tail by not making sure every interaction's great.
Yeah.
And maybe like in his mind, he's like, well, that's just the cost of doing business. But I don't think that's a smart approach.
Well, no, because what it doesn't take into consideration is the unexpected, right? So when you were talking about, well, of course, 80%, that's what we should expect. But then if we're only aiming for the 80%, we're not going to hit those all the time. And then now we're dropping even lower. So it'd be like me walking into a test fully prepared, like, okay, we're going to, be covering chapters 1 through 5. And that's going to be on the test. And I'm like, good. I only need to be in that class. I only need to be in this test to get an A in the class because I've done really well, the rest of the year. So I'm going to study 1 through 4. I can nail 1 through 4. I will totally get an 80% on this test, 1 through 4. But I'm not going to study for chapter 5 because I don't need it. No big deal. And then lo and behold, I get the dang test. And you know what? Half the test is on chapter 5. Well, crap. Now I've gone in with a plan that was faulty from the get-go. Whereas if I would have been aiming for 100%, batting 1,000 is one of the common things. Is like, if I go in expecting that I have prepared for perfection in every single patient interaction, then I know that if I swing and miss a few times, that's okay because I was aiming for 100. I wasn't aiming for 80. So I do think it's a risky mindset to go in there because that's assuming you're going to get 80 out of 100 interactions you're going to get perfect because you planned for that. But what if you didn't? What if you messed up somehow? So to me, that's more pressure. That puts so much more pressure, in my opinion, because you're already at risk before you even start the day. So no, I don't agree with that mindset at all. Now, I think it's okay to come to the end of a bad day and to go, we've laid it all out on the line. We have done what we can do. There's nothing more that we can do about this situation or this upset parent or whatever. We got to just go home and brush it off and it'll all be okay. Then I feel like that's a very appropriate mindset because we have to be able to let go of some things at some point. But to me, it's more on the back end than it is on the front end.
It's a much crummier feeling to go, damn it, we should have. If we had just switched Mary and Betty, would that have made the difference? Mm-hmm. Would I not be in this situation now? Although I would say, I don't know that he or people like that would ever reflect on it like that anyway. That would have just been like, oh, crazy patient. Mm-hmm. But I guess to me, my thought is, do you look at the interactions? Do you try to get feedback to go, can I make this better?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people either don't think about it or don't have the wherewithal to think about it, or maybe think that they're limited because I only have these 2 staff members, or which I'm not saying is not valid, but it's still like, but you're gonna play the card you were dealt. You only have these 2, but can you still be strategic?
Yeah. Or what else? Okay, if I've only got these 2 team members and this patient hates both of them, and we got to seat this crown. Okay, well then what can we do to prepare to make that a more enjoyable experience? Let's think through this particular, team member and go, what skills could she gain in the next 2 weeks that would get her prepared to deal with the rotten patient? Okay, well, let's focus on that then. And again, is it worth it for one patient? Heck yeah, it is. without a doubt, even if that person is unreasonable. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to be devastated if she still has the same experience and it was bad. We still are going to feel good that we put the effort in, and maybe we gain skills in that process that we can use towards other cranky patients. But yeah, I don't think we just roll over and
I'm saying this without really thinking about it, but I think when we're talking about this, I think the difference is, if you're a practice owner, this is part of your job, because you're a business owner and should always be strategizing to be the best.
Right.
If you're going to be like, well, there's Starbucks next door, my coffee shop just isn't going to do that well, but that's okay, I'll take the sloppy seconds of Starbucks. I mean, you're going to have a very different outcome with your business and your success. And if you're not really kind of going, well, it just is what it is, then stay an associate. You're not a practice owner if you're not always trying to
be better.
Yes, be a better leader, be a better owner. So I don't know if I'm right about that. I guess I'm just saying it without really thinking it. I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but I do think if you kind of just like, well, it is what it is, and shucks, I just don't, maybe, I don't know. Am I being too harsh or unfair when I say that?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a certain quality, there's a certain drive that somebody really should have to own a business, any business, whether it's the coffee shop or a dental practice. There's a certain drive that really needs to be there. And I think if you're going into it thinking it's sunshine and rainbows and easy and it'll just all be okay, man, you're going to get slapped in the face. I mean, it's going to be a rude awakening.
Yes.
Right?
And I think most of us do get slapped in the face. For a while, we do. And not because we thought it was going to be easy. It's just we didn't realize how many hands there were that could slap. Like, we've been an associate for this long, and I've dealt with these patients, and I've dealt with these staff members, and I've dealt with the doctor owner, and she's an idiot. She can do it. I can do it. I've already faced all of these things. Well, yeah, you've experienced 10 of the 100 hands that could punch you in the face. And so you get there. And I think owners, I think we would all say that. We are like, oh my God, I didn't realize just how violent this could be. I was anticipating 20, not 100. And then it's like, okay, but how am I prepping myself for 1,000 slaps? I don't want to be slapped at all.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess my analogy would be, do you mind getting punched in the face? Maybe that's what it is. If you're not preparing, then you must like the abuse. You like being hit in the face every time.
And for that, there's no help. I'm so sorry. Just go right ahead. Get yourself punched.
I don't like being punched. I'd rather problem solve this before I get punched. Do I need to buy a new helmet? Should I go in there with boots on? What am I doing here? Because last time I got my toes crushed and I don't want to wear flip-flops again. What should I do? And if you're going to be one who's like, well, my flip-flops, most patients don't step on my feet. Well, I lost that toe. I only got 9, but it's okay. Where are we drawing our line here?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I think I've gotten us off course here, but the point was, how much do you prepare for these patients for the next visit?
A lot.
Okay. Now, you said it was a little different for, if it was a filling patient. So do you mind throwing in there? Obviously, you don't have to deal with them again. So if it's going to be a while since they come back, hopefully they cooled and you cool, and so there's no interaction. Do you have somebody reach out to them a day later and say, hey, that appointment was kind of intense. You okay? Anything wrong? Or do you not touch that with a 10-foot pole? Do you just not touch it and inactivate them? That's what I tend to do.
You've got so many options here. And I will say, at the risk of not being helpful, that there's no right or wrong on this. It depends on the doctor, the team, the patient,
and
the scenario. Yeah. And so if we've done their work, we absolutely are within our power to dismiss that patient. But again, we have to dismiss that patient in a proper order. They've got to have, it depends on the state, but in Texas, we have to give them 30 days notice so that if they had an emergency pop up within that 30 days, we would have to see them. in order to not abandon them in patient care. So,
and in Texas, there's a very specific letter, like components to that letter. And to me, the whole process of dismissal is, to me, I'm like, that's a bomb waiting to go off.
Yes.
And so that's not for this episode, but I'm just saying, like, if you decided to dismiss,
then it comes with risks.
Check into your state laws as far as how
to do it properly. So there's always that option. Which again, all of these have associated risks and benefits with them. And then the other one is, just inactivate. This tends to be my go-to, is just inactivate. They turn off all their notifications. They're not getting reminders about the need to come back for a cleaning or things like that. It's just like, poof, we're no longer contacting this person. And so that's a good option for this, because we're like, let's hope that she just fades into the sunset and we don't have to worry about her.
Forgets about us.
So that's an option. And then the third option is, okay, I think she's the type of person, she's not normally this angry and upset. Let's give her a few days, and then let's have our sweet team member that she loves so much, let's have her call and check on her and just see, hey, how are those feelings doing? Just wanted to check on you, see how things are going. We don't have to mention that last time was rough. We can let her bring that up, and if she chooses to.
I feel like in Dr. Jones's case, this woman's always like that, so that call would have been more fuel on the fire, and just don't do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. For him, I would have recommended, and I think this is what they opted to do, is just inactivate, don't contact for any reason. And I think that's the right move with this patient and with this particular situation. After she got the crown seated, it was like, okay, let's let her fade off into the sunset. And I think that's the appropriate move in a lot of these situations. It's the least risky of all of them, as long as they truly are completed with their treatment. We don't want to be in a situation where it looks like, oh, but they still had, we completed the implant placement, but she still needed to come back for the implant crown. Even though we haven't started the implant crown, that's still a little risky to me, because it's like, that was all treatment related to one tooth, even though it's separate codes over a 6 or 8 month period of time. It's still like, the whole point was to replace the tooth. So that you got to just be careful, I guess, with that as well. But yeah, those would be the options.
So my second question on this whole thing, if you remember back when I started this, I had two main questions. One was, how did you get that patient out the door? Did he pop back in and say, I'm sorry for grabbing your face and telling you to shut the hell up because you're an idiot? What did he do? Or did he just disappear and not come back, and assistant placed the temp and let her leave? And then, she comes back for her crown, and we talked about, what do you do? Like, did they strategize or not? We don't know what he did, how he prepared for that appointment, but whatever, got the crown seated and out the door. My question is then, I think he mentioned something about, should we fire this patient? Whether that's, whichever way we're going to do it. And I think you mentioned, or he mentioned something about how there was maybe a hygienist on the team that is like, no, this patient's always cranky, but, I can always get her through an appointment, and that's just how she is, but who else is going to treat her? We can do this. She still needs care, and, let's just kill her with kindness. I think we should keep her as a patient. So how are there things that, and of course then that person wasn't involved in this care, because I think she was a hygienist, and so she wasn't involved in the crown prep. Now, where the assistants and Dr. Dillons are probably like, who the hell didn't fire this patient before? Oh, it was Mary, the hygienist.
Yeah.
Well, damn it, you're going to be in here for the crown seat next time, and you're going to suction and pack the cord because you're the one who said you could get this patient through it.
Right.
And we had a miserable evening, and I got cursed out. I might have a board complaint. Maybe her husband was videotaping the whole thing and watched me be on YouTube. Mary, what were you thinking? Why would you set your team up for failure with this loco? We can try to help everybody, but we can't help everybody. This is putting the entire office at risk. What were you thinking? So my question to you is, how do you navigate those? If there are people advocating to keep the patient or not, who ultimately should kind of decide?
Without a doubt, the doctor.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Because while licensed individuals are at risk for some things, the hygienist or even the assistant, the buck stops with the doctor. And the doctor is going to have to decide whether they're willing to take a risk on this particular patient or not. And so there can certainly be team members that are advocating, and I think that's precious and sweet, and I love that. But at the end of the day, if this doctor feels like he cannot handle this patient, they have got to make that decision and not let the perspective of the team ultimately influence. And I don't say that very often. Most of the time I'm like, let's collaborate, let's work together on this. But the doctor knows himself or herself enough to know, I can't deal with that patient. And it is too big of a risk to the practice to just power through and push through.
But I can't see your dad ever saying, we need to give up on this patient.
Yeah.
But ultimately then that's his own doing then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bed he's making, and he's got to lie in it then.
Yeah.
I would say my team's opposite. Like, the minute one decides somebody's got to go, they're all like, and I tend to be the same. I'm like, okay, I didn't mind that patient, but she was rude to you. They're out.
Yeah.
I don't want my team having to dread this person coming in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's all the time, because a lot of times it is like one person has a problem. I'm like, you're kind of cranky with that patient, but this patient's not bad. This is their deal. I know you don't agree with that, but you just stay away from that patient and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But I think it did make me go, how do you decide when you want to fire the patient?
You bring up a really valuable point here, is sometimes it's the doctor that hesitates to fire a patient, and the team is overwhelmingly stressed by this patient when he or she's on the schedule. And so that perspective is important to consider. It doesn't mean that a doctor is just always willing to fire a patient because the team doesn't like them. It just means it goes back to us being strategic. We know that, Sally and Susie can't stand this person, but Scarlett's just fine with her. Okay. And the doctor's fine with this patient. Okay, then Scarlett, you're this person's person. You're always going to be the one that's with her. And so you're exactly right. We can't always just fire a patient because our team doesn't like this person. As long as we have one or two people on the team that can still work with that patient and the doctor wants to, then we can keep the patient on board. But the risk is there that we stress our employees out so much because we have all these bad patients that we never seem to let them go, and it stresses them out, and that's not good either.
I would imagine that would be more in one of those cases, two cases. One, if the doctor's like, well, we need the funds, like we can't let a patient go because we're barely paying rent. Or if it's a doc that's like, everything's fine. What do you mean? The patient's fine to me.
Yeah.
We're good. And not realizing that it really is quite a strenuous burden, because the front desk is the one that gets reamed out every time. The hygienist gets reamed out, and all she was trying to do was floss. You come in, and because you're kind of a aw shucks likable guy who's not dramatic, and the patients often don't act that way with us, the doctor. And so I think just being cognizant of really trying to feel out from your team, and then ultimately it is up to you whether you can handle them or not. A lot of times I would say, if you're choosing to keep the patient, how many team members are you going to lose at some point?
Yeah. It's not worth the risk. I can think of one situation in particular that keeps coming to mind as we talk about this. There was a client of mine that had a older gentleman patient that had a tendency to be borderline inappropriate with female team members. And so, the hygienist had kind of punted him along to the next hygienist, like, oh, you can probably handle him. Well, it got down to basically like the last hygienist that he was on her schedule, and she had seen him a couple times with no issue, and she was like, I've got it, he's fine, Well, then just something happened where he made in one visit, a series of inappropriate comments to her that just did not sit well. She kept getting more and more upset throughout the visit. Ended up at one point, she felt like he was a little handsy with her, like nowhere violently that he went, but it was just like, I'm really uncomfortable right now. And so she went and left the appointment and went and got the doctor, a male doc, that is having to make a decision right then and there. Because this has been a pervasive trend with this patient. He's been punted down the line. He's on his last hygienist. And it really was one of those situations. You either kick this patient out or you're going to lose teammates over this. And he had to go in right then and there and tell that patient that he was not allowed to come back due to, inappropriate things. So you look at
oh my God, I'm sweating right now just thinking about that. Poor doc, but poor hygienist, but poor,
awful, right? But that's a situation exactly what you're talking about, that if he would have said, he's fine, we can handle it, he would have lost teammates over that. And so you have to think about, is that patient that valuable to me as a practice owner that I'm willing to lose 2 or 3 team members over this? And most patients aren't. So I do think we have to be mindful of situations like that, and it needs to be overwhelming evidence against that patient that they need to go. I'm not saying that, they annoy me. So there's going to be situations like that come up that we have to take the side of the team.
Yucky. Okay.
All right. Did we get all your questions answered?
Yes, but I do need to corner Dr. Jones to figure out what exactly... I still want to know what was going through his head and how he...
navigated the situation.
Yeah, and he's so positive. He may not tell me exactly. I'm going to be like, no, you need to tell me exactly.
Yeah,
no, it was all fine. It was good. The patient came. And we're like, no, like how...
Details, please.
Details,
sir.
please, sir. Yes.
Well, and he's got a really strong office manager. My sister-in-law is his office manager, and if Dr. Jones is not on top of something, she is. So it'd also be interesting to hear her perspective on the whole thing.
I don't think he could ever not be on top of something. So I don't understand what you just said. No offense to her. I'm sure she's great.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
But so is he.
I don't know her, but I do know him. He is always on top of everything. So.
Yeah. So true. Oh, awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.